So I wanted to share with you my thoughts about the shame and if abusers were always this way and can they change? And, not everybody agrees with me, and that's absolutely fine. But the way I see it is that abusers are probably born already, and there's other researchers out there who affirm that there's like a predisposition to having these traits of low levels of really cognitive empathy, the ability to truly experience what somebody else is experiencing. Abusers have an ability to demonstrate empathy. They know how to copy and mimic other people to get what they want, but they don't have cognitive empathy. And so imagine that you're born into a family system where you might have this predisposition. You may have been born a little more ego compromised. It doesn't mean there's anything quote unquote wrong with you. If you're born into a healthy family dynamic, then you're gonna fortify your ego resiliency. It's going to get healthier. It's going to be something that your family, your caretakers help you navigate so that you don't feel like you're less than. But if you're born into a harmful family system, and in that family system, you are shamed. You are not allowed to authentically be yourself. You're not loved unconditionally. There's no positive regard, or it's minimal. It's little, tiny little things. If you do what the abuser wants you to do, mother, father, both, if you do caretaker, if you do what they want you to do, then you're loved. So you do learn to shift around your behaviors. You do feel unsafe. You can't be yourself. So if you can't be yourself, then your attachment is not securely attached. It's either an ambivalent, an avoidant, a disorganized attachment. Most abusers end up with disorganized attachment. They've never really been able to feel safe in relationships, and therefore they behave in ways that are harmful to others in relationship dynamics. And what is this about? So were they always that way? Well, maybe again, this is something that over time becomes more and more and more compromised. As they were a child, they didn't have that secure attachment. As they grew up, they were constantly being told they were a disappointment, or that they were lazy, or they're just like their father, right? Or they're just like their mother. Like all of these ways that we diminish children by not giving them that ability to grow into having healthy ego development, ego resiliency. And so it is death by a thousand paper cuts when you're abused in a way that's not physically violent, but we know it's just as harmful as physical violence. And so the suffering is immense, but there's no one to talk to. No one recognizes it. No one knows what's going on. If that child was born a little more ego resilient, maybe they would have latched on to a healthy caretaker somewhere, a grandparent, a relative, maybe a mentor, a coach. And in that, they may have overcome some of these tendencies. But if they didn't have that, if they didn't have access to those support services, sorry, it just makes me get a little emotional. If they didn't have access to those protective parts to help them, then what ends up happening is that shame that they're feeling at a very young age just keeps getting built on and built on. It's like becomes a concrete fortress where they literally do not have the ability to really recognize and be self-reflective. And it gets worse with time. And so now you take a person who maybe has this buildup of shame, and then they get engaged in a relationship with a person who's a fawner, someone who's empathic, who tries to fix things, who's highly agreeable, and they just get more and more power. So the shame fortress just grows. It just continues to get fortified, and it grows and grows and grows. And then from there, that adult victim decides to escape. And oh my gosh, you cannot expose my layers and layers of shame. You can't. And so I'm going to retaliate. I'm going to do whatever I can to retaliate. And in that, I'm going to weaponize anything I can. I'm going to weaponize your vulnerabilities, anything you shared with me, anything personal, pictures, videos, whatever it is. I'm going to tell everyone that you were in therapy because you were mentally ill. I'm going to talk about things that I caught on camera. You didn't even know I had cameras up in the house, right? And I'm going to, of course, use the legal system, financially abuse, maybe sexual coercion so that you can gain access to your children. I'm going to keep your children from you. I'm going to use your immigration status against you. And then, of course, weaponize the children. The ultimate revenge is to weaponize the children. So now what I've done as an abuser is I have projected my own shame onto my children. And because of that, they too may grow up with these ambivalent, avoidant, disorganized, which is sadly the most insecure attachment, disorganized attachment, and therefore be more likely to be a victim or more likely to be a perpetrator because they are beginning to create their shame wall, their fortress of shame, the concrete that is just so thick around them that doesn't break down easily unless they have a protective parent who can help them to see their value, their worth, connect versus correct, coach instead of correct, be there as their authoritative, rhymes with give, parent to support them. So I hope that's helpful, everyone. Thanks. Have a great day. Please remember to subscribe.